It's not hard at all. And I actually learned a new way to do a Y seam, so there you go. Hey, this is Carrie's Canary Quilts, and this is week 8 of the Midnight Moon, Moda Midnight Moon Quilt Along. And this is a Halloween quilt that is done with Carrie Nelson's Summer Moon pattern, just using Halloween fabrics. And look at these blocks. I love looking at these through the camera. It just is so pretty. And the background of these blocks blends with my board here, so it just looks like these centers, this O and this patchwork maple star really stands out. That is so cool. This is a lot of fun. This block, when you read the pattern, looks intimidating. It does have a Y seam, but break it down, show you how to do it. It's really easy. So today I'm just going to quickly show you how to put these two blocks together, show you how I did the Y seam on my Patchwork Big O Block, and if you want to follow along, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell, and you'll get notified every time I put up a new video. Especially next week's, which is the bonus block. We don't know what it is, and it's going to be so much fun. Last time's was Batty Bat. So what is it going to be this time? So let's get started on our blocks. Quick reminder that I do have links below for the fabrics that you see in this video and for the quilt along. The quilt along includes the fabrics, but you do have to buy the Carrie Nelson Summer Moon pattern separately. So check below if you're interested in what you see. Welcome back to week 8 of the Midnight Moon Quilt Along. So this week we have Maple Star and Patchwork Big O. And these are really fun blocks to put together. If you looked at Moda Fabrics for week 8, they show this block without the flying geese and it looks really different. Also, they show different variations of fabric to make this block look really different. So we're going to start with the Maple Star block this week and let's put it together. So I've already done my medium and my small blocks, and I've got my pieces cut and ready to go. So this one is going to have several pieces that are the same size that you're going to use in different places. So I've got my background rectangle and I've got my black squares, and that's going to make these for flying geese. I've also got background squares and black squares that are the same size, but they're going to be used right here in the block. And then I've also got more rectangles, just like the flying geese, but these are going to be used in the corners of the block. And then we've got rectangles that go in the side and the middle square. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the flying geese, and we mark the back of our 8 squares. And flying geese, we've done a lot of them here. Just going to start by putting our black square on the side of our background rectangle, and we are going to sew along this line, trim 1/4 inch, and iron towards the corner. So here's my flying geese. I sewed along that line, and then I trimmed 1/4 inch away from that seam, and then I ironed it towards the dark side. So the next thing we're going to do is take the other side of our black pieces, and we're going to lay them on there just like this, where it crosses the top of the other half of the flying geese, and we're going to sew along that line, trim 1/4 inch from the seam, and iron towards the corner. Okay, so we finished our flying geese, and the next thing we want to do is build this corner square. So we're going to take our background square and my black square, and we're going to just put it together, sew it 1/4 inch, and iron towards the light side. So there's my 2 pieces put together right here, and now we're going to add them to this rectangle to make our corner unit. So we need 2 that are going to be on the left We're going to need 2 on the right. Just so we make sure we get them the right ones in the corner. Pin the side you're going to sew, and we'll get all of these sewn, and we are going to be ironing towards the light rectangle. Okay, our corner units are done over here. Now we want to take and build these center flying geese units. So we're going to take our, which is my orange rectangle, and put it with my flying goose. Line it up on the edges, and then we're going to sew on the top of the flying goose. And then we are going to iron it towards our rectangle. So there's our center units done. So let's put the block together. Let's put our large square, and then we're going to put our center flying geese units around the square. And then we are putting our corner units so that this square is in the pointing towards the center square. So that's how our block is set up. So now we just need to iron our rows together, and we will be ironing towards the corners and towards the center patch. Also, because of the way we ironed our seams, these will nest for us. So they'll be nice and snug next to each other. So I've ironed my seams toward the corners and towards the center, so now all we have left to do is to put our rows together, and because of the way we sew or iron the seams, our seams will nest very nicely together. And our block will be completed. And there we have our maple star finished. This is the large block I just showed you how to make. And that is a beautiful block. It is amazing how flying geese can just make such a difference in a block. How you turn them, where you place them, they really are a very versatile block. So, up next is our Patchwork Big O Block. So to get started on our Patchwork Big O Block, I forgot to hit record, but you can see that I have the strips cut of the 4 different colors, and then I have 5 squares of the background that are all the same size. And 4 of those squares you can see in the bottom that I've drawn a diagonal on them. But the first thing we're going to do is just randomly put together different colors of the strips and sew them with a 1/4 of an inch seam and iron towards one side. So here's my 4 strips sewn together, and I've ironed them to one side. So the pattern has us cut 5 of these squares. 4 of them we are going to draw a diagonal line on the back of it. So what we're going to do with this is that we are lay your strip vertical towards you, put it on the top of your strip, and make sure your vertical line is going from the top right to the bottom left. And then we are going to sew along this line, and just like with the flying geese, we're going to cut a 1/4 of an inch away from that seam and then iron our background towards the corner. Okay, so here's 3 units done, and to get to these, what I did was I took my ruler, set my 1/4 of an inch on the seam, and then cut the corner off. So then we're going to iron this towards the background. Okay, so we've got all 4 pieces here. I've already done this. I'll show you how I did it. It's going to go together like this. And that's going to comprise our block. So to start putting our block on, we're going to work this way around, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew the center piece onto this block on the left, and we're going to make a mark a 1/2 an inch from the center of the block down, and then we're just going to sew from that line to the edge, and then we're going to iron towards the strip. Okay, so there is, I've ironed it towards the strip. So the next thing we want is we want to put on this bottom piece. Make sure your corner is out in the corner here. And then it fits perfectly. So we're going to iron 1/4 inch. We're not going to iron 1/4 inch. We are going to sew 1/4 inch. Line your edges up. So 1/4 inch and iron towards the strips. Okay, now we've got our bottom corner, left corner on. Remember, we've still got this opening up here. Now we want to put on this right strip. Make sure your corner's there. Line up your edges, sew 1/4 inch and iron towards the strip. Okay, now it's time for this last piece. And it's really not too hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this out of the way and we're just going to sew this on just like we did the other ones. Sew this on at 1/4 inch and iron towards the strip. So this is sewn on here. So now we need to sew this section together. So let's fold it back over, line it up, and we are going to sew from this edge to where we started sewing before. So there we go. We closed that gap right there. So there's our Big O, Patchwork Big O block for our week 8 Midnight Moon quilt along. It was fun. It wasn't hard. It seemed intimidating, but it really wasn't that hard. So next week we're getting a bonus block, and last time we got a Batty Bat block, so it's going to be fun to see what we get this week. So if you want to follow along for this week's bonus block, hit subscribe below and like this video. It really does help the channel out. So we will see you in the next video.